And an attempt from a surprising source to reassure the public about what seems to be a rocky transition so far. Just minutes ago, Vice President Biden emerging from a meeting with his soon-to-be successor, Governor Mike Pence, and saying the following.
Do you think the administration's going to be ready on day one?
No administration is ready on day one. We weren't ready on day one. I've never met one that's ever been ready on day one. But I'm confident on day one, everything will be in good hands.
Remain calm. That seemed a direct reference to the myriad questions about just how smoothly or not the Trump transition is going. As has been widely reported, the president-elect was not particularly focused on preparing to staff up the White House and his cabinet agencies until about a week ago, because he and his team did not think they would necessarily have to. In the last week, we've seen many reports on infighting and backstabbing as the team reshuffled its transition leadership. Mr. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is said to be purging anyone directly affiliated with Governor Chris Christie, who used to head the transition team. Now, this stems from the fact that in 2005, when Mr. Christie was a U.S. attorney in New Jersey, Mr. Kushner's father, Charles, pleaded guilty to 18 counts of tax evasion, witness tampering, and making illegal campaign donations. Jared Kushner is now rising in Mr. Trump's orbit, and this purge has begun of anyone affiliated with Christie helping to staff up the government, seen as being on Christie's team, regardless of qualifications. President-elect Trump, however, while continuing to not give a post-election news conference, opted for Twitter instead to reassure us huddled masses, saying, quote, "Very organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are." Finalists. CNN political reporter Sarah Murray is with me now. Sarah, things are going so smoothly inside Trump Tower, says the next president of the United States.
Donald Trump says everything is going according to plan. Look, I think what you're seeing is while they may not have lost total control over their transition process, they are going through some growing pains. It certainly is true that they have lost control of at least the narrative surrounding that. And so today we're seeing folks in some of the top ranking positions in this transition trying to hit back against that narrative.
Just a week into Donald Trump's transition effort, his team is already beating back reports of infighting and disorganization.
We feel really good about the transition. I actually would just say it's false to say it's not going well. Everything up there is very smooth.
And anyone saying anything else is either A, bitter because they're not on the inside and they're not being considered, or there's someone who's just bitter because the election was last week and they didn't get the result that they wanted.
Trump himself took to Twitter to insist everything's going fine. Very organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are. A steady stream of top aides, family advisors, and potential appointees coming in and out of Trump Tower all morning. As one of his allies, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich urges Trump to take his time.
If you're a new president-elect, everything's possible. And the minute you pick somebody, you begin to shrink the possibilities. And so I think he's being correct and being very cautious in how he's approaching this.
Meanwhile, the president-elect also knocking down reports that he was interested in top-secret security clearance for his children. Tweeting, "I am not trying to get top-level security clearance for my children. This was a typically false news story." But a source familiar with the transition tells CNN that Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, could eventually end up with a top national security clearance, although it has not happened yet. As Vice President-elect Mike Pence, who is now heading the transition effort, traveled to Washington to meet with Vice President Joe Biden.
I'm available to him 24/7.
One of Trump's visitors today, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, the liberal Democrat, told reporters he wanted to express the fears of many New Yorkers, particularly minorities, about a Trump presidency.
I told him that we were very concerned that we had to show all New Yorkers, including Muslim New Yorkers, that they were welcome. And I let them know that so many New Yorkers were fearful, and that more had to be done to show that this country can heal.
Trump spending much of the week inside his Midtown Tower, but even he couldn't resist an evening out with his family on Tuesday. The only problem, Trump departed for dinner after his aides assured reporters he was in for the night. The move sparking a new wave of concerns about the Trump team's transparency. Journalists swiftly noted the small group of reporters assigned to track a president or president-elect's movements each day must be present in case of historic or horrific developments.
Now, the White House Correspondents Association has already called it unacceptable that Donald Trump ditched his press pool. And there are plenty of people who will be critical of this, saying it's just navel-gazing by the press, that they just essentially want to be there to watch a president-elect eat dinner. That's not what the press pool does. The reason that they're there is to document moments in history. Remember, a small pool of reporters was with George W. Bush when he learned about 9/11. Pool reporters covered John F. Kennedy's assassination, and they were right there when Ronald Reagan was shot outside a hotel right here in Washington, D.C. Jake?